As many in this congregation know, I am a huge fan of movies and pop culture. I just did a sermon series on Christmas movies, or Advent through the eyes of Christmas movies. Well, this is not a quote from a Christmas movie, but it is a quote from a favorite movie. In the desert, when the sun comes up, I couldn't tell where heaven stopped and the earth began. It's so beautiful. I bet some of you might know what movie that came from. Forrest Gump. He described his experience when he was running across the country from ocean to ocean, back and forth, and how he experienced the divine in nature. That quote always reminds me of the human and the divine meeting as one. It reminds me that earth and heaven aren't so far away from each other, often becoming tangled in beautiful ways. It's always magnificent when we can see the thin spaces between God and ourselves, whether in nature or in the actions of other people. Not too long ago, I heard about the concept called Axis Mundi. And according to Wikipedia, that's not exactly the greatest source, but it's a good enough source for just looking up some information. Axis Mundi is the world center or connection between heaven and earth. It expresses a point of connection between sky and earth where the four compass directions meet. At this point, travel and correspondence is made between higher and lower realms. Communication from lower realms may ascend to higher realms, and blessings from higher realms may descend to lower ones and be disseminated to all. There's various traditions out there that have named some of their Axis Mundi, including the Bohi tree, especially where Buddha found enlightenment. The Garden of Eden with its 4 rivers, Mount Ararat, the cross at the crucifixion, Mount Kilimanjaro, Hagia Sophia, even some things like Jack's Beanstalk, the totem pole, and the temple lot in Mormonism. But I've wondered, could it be that the manger scene could be considered one of these Axis Mundis? It's a connection between heaven and earth, a connection between sky and world. Correspondence is made between higher and lower realms when you read the stories, whether it's the story of Matthew with the star, or the story in Luke with angels. Blessings from a higher realm is disseminated to all. Some call these thin spaces, as I mentioned. The boundary between heaven and earth is a thin film. The boundary is hardly a boundary at all. And then thinking about it a little bit more, I wonder if it's not just the manger, but Jesus himself, the Christ. In this one person, the human and divine can be seen. Communication exists between the two, and the human and the divine can understand one another so much better. Through Jesus the Christ, humans experienced blessings in the form of teachings and healings. Through acceptance and inclusion, they were fed by Jesus. People were able to come back to society when they were healed of their uncleanliness. People were able to find new life because their bodies worked once again. People learned to communicate with the divine through the Lord's Prayer. People understood God so much better just because the Christ was walking the earth extending God's grace and love to everyone that Jesus met. While sometimes it can be hard for us to see where heaven and earth meet in our communities and in our world, it's hard, especially when people are hurting. Some of you might be here tonight hurting, and it might be hard for you to see God in your midst. Hard for you to see light, hope, peace, love, and joy. And our prayer is with you that will come back into your lives like a small stream of light coming into the world. I love this quote by Mr. Rogers. "When I was a boy and I would see scary things in the news, my mother would say to me, 'Look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping.' When we help one another in the shadow-filled valleys of life, the light of Christ presents us with love, with light, with hope, with faith, with joy. When people extend the love of Jesus the Christ to one another, I believe that's another place where heaven and earth meet. That's like the manger in our world. When we feed those without food, advocate for those who cannot escape poverty, visit the lonely and the hurting, speak up when we hear any of the isms and the hatred of our time, love one another as we are loved by God, then we bring heaven to earth. The birth of the Christ, the joy and the chaos and the noise that happened at the manger, that's the cornerstone of the divine and human meeting together in our world. So as we move through the season of Christmas, which starts tonight, this is the beginning of Christmas, as we move into the new year and Epiphany, let's join together to share love in our world. Not just during Christmas time, not just during Valentine's Day or special occasions, but on ordinary days, every day throughout the year, helping others see the divine in our very human world. Amen.